Welcome to the Just Right Snowboard channel. I am Lars Horstman, and today with a slightly different subject here, something that is very close to my heart, I'd like to share with you a couple thoughts on the book The Darkest White, written by Eric Blehm, which is basically a biography on Craig Kelly, the story of Craig's life and all the events that later on in January 2003 led up to his death in an avalanche. So there's about two scenarios at hand here. Scenario number one is you know Craig Kelly, you love the history of snowboarding and all the little details, and in that case you should definitely read the book, because there will be things in it that will surprise you or that you didn't know, and that will make your life as a snowboarder much richer. This is what happened to me. I thought I knew a lot until I read this book. Now, scenario number two would be you don't know Craig Kelly and you don't know anything about the history of snowboarding. And in that case, absolutely no-brainer, read the book. If you've never heard of Craig Kelly and you're wondering why it would be important to know anything about him, just a couple thoughts from myself. I think Craig was a pioneer in many different ways regarding snowboarding, and in particular had a very strong voice in regards to gear development. And I am often wondering where things would be now, or where splitboarding would have gone had he not died in 2003. I think technology in splitboarding evolved fairly late if you consider the whole history of snowboarding. And I feel like he was so early on those two planks uphill, that with his kind of mindset, this perfectionist kind of mindset, and the strength of his voice in the industry, that he could have pushed the envelope there roughly a full decade earlier than what we've seen. Oh, and before I forget to mention this, if you like this channel and my content here, and you'd love to support me a little bit so I can keep going successfully, from now on there's an option. You can do this right here. To me, he's also an inspiration because he somewhat turned his back on the mainstream and the hype in the snowboarding industry. My biggest criticism, and I know that some people don't like me for that, to the snowboarding industry as a whole, is that it's so bloody trends and fashion based. Everything is always like this hype and this talk of the newest thing that you now need and whatnot. While somebody like myself, who is talking about how to properly execute a turn, is quickly regarded a nerd or like some kook or whatever. So it paints this picture of, oh, it's not really about riding, it's more about consuming it. You know, suddenly you have brands like Nike making goggles, right? Like suddenly snowboarding is simply a product that needs to be consumed, and the more the better. And Craig demonstrated that you can be a snowboarder for the love of the sport, for the love of riding a snowboard. And you don't have to participate all that much in just trends and hype. So that's always been very inspiring to me as a person. But back to the book. I'm not going to give away any details, but I do quickly want to talk about Eric Blehm, the author himself. Eric is not only a New York Times best-selling author of the books Fearless and The Last Season, but he's also a journalist, and he is also a snowboarder. He has his own history as a rider, and he actually knew Craig Kelly himself. So all these things to me combined already have authenticity written all over it, and I think that's what's required when you write a biography, and also when you then try to shine some light on a tragedy like this avalanche. Authenticity is key. So I got to meet Eric myself here in Fernie. We hung out with our mutual friend Mark Gallup. Rode the ski hill that day. I tuned Eric's board that night. There's actually a video of this popping up here that I made that night. Yeah, we just had a great time together. Mark is a snowboarding photographer. If you're not following that guy on Instagram yet, you better do so immediately. Mark is a bit of a legend in that department. You will find tons and tons of iconic snowboard shots from the past, and also tons of stories that are insanely entertaining. Mark is a gem when it comes to sharing the things that happened back in the day. He also gave me permission to use all these fantastic Craig Kelly riding shots that you are seeing here. So yeah, thank you very much, Mark, for giving me access to those. Anyhow, things about the book that stand out to me. It's a book that is very easy to read, it's very fun to read, it's very entertaining and captivating. It kept me going, and I get bored of books pretty quickly, and that did not happen once during this read. So that's awesome. It kind of reads like fiction. If you know nothing about Craig or the history of snowboarding, you quickly forget that this is all based on facts and things that Eric Blem pulled out of interviews that he had with all these people that knew Craig and that witnessed the history of the sport. So that's pretty awesome, the way that's written without being dull. You know, quite often these things can sound like a list of events and dates, and this is just really a nicely cohesively written story. And then there's this point later in the book when we slowly approach the day of the avalanche. Like Eric goes through all the events that led up to it. And that's when I started to realize, dang, this guy knows how to do research. Eric Blem does a really good job in talking to the right people and giving them their voice without trying to push you as a reader into a certain direction. I really, really appreciate that. The topic of this avalanche is obviously a difficult one. Nature is involved, people and decisions are involved, and you can imagine that it isn't quite as easy as you want it to be. Whenever something tragic happens, the world demands that someone finds the culprit, ideally quickly, so we can find peace of mind. And that is often not as simple as that. So Eric does a great job shining a light on all these things while telling a story. I think I finished the book with a slightly different view on the entire subject, but first and foremost, I finished the book as a richer snowboarder. I really learned so many little cool facts and details about Craig Kelly and the history. Yeah, I'm just grateful to Eric that he wrote this book and did such a tremendous job researching all the facts. All right, that was my little detour into the world of literature with Eric Blem's The Darkest White, and I hope I can inspire you to add this book to your bookshelf. Personally, when I read this, I realized that I'm not reading enough. It's good for my brain to dive into a story, a different world, and stop thinking things. Anyhow, if you like what you're seeing on this channel, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel and get the notifications so you know what's coming next. It's insanely important for small channels like mine to grow as a platform, to get you guys on here. I have some videos with 50,000 views, yet I have only 6,900 subscribers so far. So if you really like what you're seeing here, just subscribe. Easy as that. Very soon we will be having snowboards on this table again, and bindings and all kinds of other fun things, and we'll be talking about turns, and I'm very much looking forward to that, and I hope you do too. See you later.